The Knowlton School of Architecture is technically under the College of Engineering and houses three majors: architecture, landscape architecture, and city and regional planning. All three majors combine a liberal arts curriculum with hands-on major coursework that emphasizes practical applications. All three majors are competitive programs that have an application process for admission to the major. The architecture major is focused on understanding the design of buildings and spaces for a variety of uses, involving coursework in the sciences, arts, and humanities. The major exposes students to the artistic side of architecture, as well as to how technology is applied to designing buildings and how architectural theory has changed the approach to designing buildings over time. The program includes a large number of studio classes that give students the opportunity to build models on projects with other classmates, so it is a very hands-on and collaborative major. Note that if your goal is to become a licensed architect, you will need to complete a master's program that is accredited by the National Architectural Accrediting Board, in addition to your undergraduate architecture major. The master's typically takes 2 years, depending on the graduate program. To be eligible to apply to architecture, you must have a GPA of at least 2.75 and have completed Architecture 2300 and 2310, Physics 1200, and Math 1118. Along with the cumulative GPA requirement, students need to have a 2.75 GPA in the 2 architecture prerequisites. Applicants also develop a portfolio in the Architecture 2310 course that is submitted and reviewed along with their application. Application reviews for the following year begin in spring. The landscape architecture major combines art and science and focuses on the design, management, and use of our land. This includes planning the layout of larger spaces, such as college campuses, conservation areas, gardens, parks, wetlands, urban and residential streetscapes, neighborhoods, public spaces, and much more. Students in this program combine critical thinking skills with hands-on experience, environmental consciousness, and construction technology in order to best utilize space. And unlike the architecture major, students can become licensed landscape architects upon completion of their undergraduate degree. The procedure for applying to this major is similar to architecture. To be eligible to apply to the major, students need to have a minimum GPA of 2.75 and have completed Landscape Architecture 2300 and 2310, Earth Science 1121, and Math 1118. And, as in the case of architecture, landscape architecture applicants will need to have a 2.75 GPA in the 2 architecture prerequisites and will develop their portfolio in the Landscape Architecture 2310 course. Application reviews for the following year begin in spring. Note that the 2300 and 2310 courses are cross-listed in both architecture and landscape architecture and fulfill the same requirements. This means that if you take Architecture 2300 and 2310, for example, you can use these credits in fulfillment of admission requirements for either the architecture or the landscape architecture major at the time of your application. If you're seriously considering architecture, but still considering other majors, you might feel uneasy about committing 7 credit hours to taking Architecture 2300 and 2310. If that's the case, here are a couple of things to keep in mind. First, Architecture 2300 is a Culture and Ideas GE, so it can be used in fulfillment of that requirement no matter which major you declare. And second, Architecture 2300 and 2310 together complete 7 of the 13 credit hours required for the architecture minor. This means that if you take these classes and don't end up in the architecture major, you're already halfway done with the architecture minor and only 2 courses away from completing it. For this reason, we generally recommend Architecture 2300 and 2310 to students who are seriously considering either architecture or landscape architecture, since they keep the door open to applying to either major and can still fulfill requirements for other programs. The last major in the Knowlton School of Architecture is City and Regional Planning. This major looks at the big picture with regard to how cities are developed. City and regional planners think about how changes to a city can affect the local economy, green energy, housing, the availability of public utilities and transportation, green spaces, and sustainability. The major helps students develop competence in the art and science of planning, design, implementation, and communication. It contains elements of planning theory and the history of planning, and includes professional practice in the field. Ohio State students who have completed at least 1 semester with a 2.75 GPA may declare the major at any time. Others must apply to the major after completing City and Regional Planning 2110. Application to City and Regional Planning are reviewed on a rolling basis throughout the year. If you are interested in learning more about one of the majors in the School of Architecture, visit their website or call their advising office to schedule an appointment with one of their undergraduate advisors.